Okay, so we want to thank you for coming today and welcome you to Open Education Week, day 2 at Texas A&M. My name is Jennifer Pate, and I am the Director of Open Education, and I'm joined by my colleagues in OpenEd, Beth Chenette, who is the Reserve Services Coordinator, and Syed Sharakni, who is the Open Publishing Platform Manager. We have an entire week of events planned, both online and in person, and you can access them at the link that Beth is going to drop into the chat for everybody. Please feel free to join us for our in-person and online events as you are able. I would especially like to invite you to join us for our Student Voices panel tomorrow night. It is a partnership with our Student Government Association to highlight the impact of low-cost and no-cost resources on our students. We also have another great webinar planned for Thursday with Amanda Larson from The Ohio State University, who will talk about open pedagogy, what it is, how to develop open pedagogy practices, and the impact of open pedagogy on students. But for now, let's start with today's presentation. So imagine if every student could access an amazing education, one that's built to spark curiosity and fuel success. And OpenStax is working to make that a reality. OpenStax is a nonprofit initiative based at Rice University, just down the road from us in right in Houston. I need to come visit you guys in person sometime.
Oh, definitely.
Um, they are the largest publisher of open educational resources in the world. And OpenStax is committed to making an amazing education possible for all. For 25 years now, OpenStax has provided free digital resources that break down barriers to learning so students can access high quality knowledge without the burden of cost. They use cutting edge technology, including AI and a product called Assignable that Anthony is going to talk about. And OpenStax is creating a more relevant and personalized learning experience that meets the students where they are. So I would like everybody to welcome Anthony Palmiato, who is the Director of Higher Education from OpenStax, to present for us today. And thank you for coming, Anthony. We really appreciate it. And take it away. It's all yours.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for that great introduction. Thanks for having me in such a great week. Those are sounds outstanding. What a robust program. And I just appreciate all the welcoming and partnership we've had with you, Jen, and then with A&M overall. And I'll share a little bit more about that. Please, everybody, it's not an overly large group where like can't stop for questions or anything. So please, we'll keep an eye on chat and Q&A, whatever. Just come off mute and stop me if I'm talking too fast, as I tend to do, and things like that. It's welcome. So I'm going to kind of dive right in. Jen shared what OpenStax is, and I'll emphasize this more. But A&M and OpenStax have been close partners for essentially the entire time we've been here. We've worked on various projects or adoptions and so on, and it's been such a rewarding experience for us. And I'll just kind of share what OpenStax does, a little bit more about our resources, and then get into those topics that we discussed. I used some A&M fonts, and sorry, quick aside, it was like a very sort of circular moment because I didn't get to do all these slides yesterday afternoon or yesterday or Sunday as I planned, but I was doing them last night, and I just put on the SEC track championship, and there was A&M like winning race after race and pointing, and I was okay, now I had to root for A&M to win. Of course I always would, but it was really kind of weird that I was working on these and you all were winning the championship, so congratulations. But anyway, we talk, especially this week, a lot about OER, right? In this audience, right? We're talking a lot about OER, but like the one thing I like to think about is that, for many faculty and students, they care about OER, they might care about OER, but they care about course materials or whatever they call them, right? Textbooks, course cartridge, assessment platform, labs, whatever the situation is. Sort of the OER part is part of what fills that need, but these are sort of the way I like to think about it is sort of these are the needs, right? Not every faculty member or student or course designer or instructional designer weighs these equally, and in some courses they matter less than others. But but being high quality, being aligned with the course at hand, being current if currency is important in that course, being inclusive should be important in every course, being accessible and accessible, because we know that assessment or some sort of evaluation is so crucial to so many courses, and also not just courses, but individual classes, right? Any day's lecture or any week's project, micro-credentials, certification programs, enrichment materials, campus events, right? And that the material will be there reliably. So with OpenStax, what we use the word amazing, and I don't know if these items are making it amazing, but I think to get to amazing, you have to have sort of a foundation. And this is sort of what we're trying to get to in terms of our foundation. If our resources are hitting the mark on most or all of these, and we're never going to be perfect on everything, and there's probably 10 things we're missing, and you get discipline specific. Of course, there's plenty of other directions to go in, but this is where we try to start in what we're providing. There's a lot on OER. I probably don't even need to go through this, but just kind of characterizing it as, they're teaching and learning materials. They're in the public domain. They're licensed. They can be remixed, edited, or otherwise customized. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I have to reshare one more time. Sorry, I just messed something up. Okay, hopefully that works. Do you see my screen by any chance? Okay, good. Okay. So, and so those are the course materials, but then when we get, what is OpenStax? So OpenStax we're part of Rice, and we are a nonprofit. We're based at Rice. We are the leading publisher of education resources. And, this is really thanks to the work of librarians, instructional designers, of course, faculty and administrators who have adopted our materials and used them in their courses. We have a lot of people who have used our materials. 36 million all-time learners, saving a lot of money compared to the traditional price of textbooks, and a very high percentage of higher ed institutions. And when we say using, we mean like in a course setting. We think that a lot of people are hitting our resources, based on a Google search or just, as an enrichment or a review item, because, we're fortunate to come up on those types of searches. But when we say 70%, we mean, these are people adopting them for courses and using them as teaching resources. It's probably a little higher than that, but I like to be conservative. And then we actually, even though we're mostly geared towards college, college books are used in high schools all the time. So we see a lot of high school usage as well. It's not massive. A lot of our high school specific efforts, if anybody's interested, are actually very Texas focused. Our K-12 division, we actually have a K-12 division. They're focused on an Algebra 1 project that is specifically for Texas Algebra 1. It's been approved by TEA and IMRA and the whole thing. So a lot of our efforts in K-12 are really Texas-based, but we are getting usage across the state, across the country, and as the last bullet things, across the countries, we're getting a lot of usage internationally as well. And like I said, a lot of partnership with Texas A&M throughout the system, right? That Tarleton and TAMU Commerce, TAMU Texarkana. We worked very closely with the biology department on a innovation project where the faculty from the biology department paired with graphic designers, some of whom from the graphic design department or other related departments at A&M, and they remade our art for the biology textbooks, and then kept it for themselves, of course, because they want to use it in their courses, but also donate it to OpenStax. And now that's the art in our bio books. And just as an example, those books are used by about 600,000 students a year across the country and across the globe. So that's A&M working with OpenStax to create a resource that's being used and helping people everywhere. And then the other piece of that art is that it's not just used in the course context. Anybody who's creating an animation, an H5P, improving the art, trying to teach a new course, creating a resource around that, can use that art too. And it's all, of course, attributed to A&M. That the art is called out that way. And so the specific authors, Asha Rao and team, the biology department. OpenStax textbooks themselves, they're aligned to course topics and outcomes. They're peer reviewed. We have a really robust peer review process where faculty are, on a chapter by chapter or sort of few chapters by unit basis, reviewing the material and making sure that it aligns with the course needs, currency, accuracy, and items like that. Reviews depend based on the timing of the review and also the subject matter at hand of sort of what they're reviewing for. We ask reviewers to be really candid and tough on us. Just because it's going to be free, we don't want any passes. We want faculty that adopt the OpenStax textbooks to feel that, you know, it's been through the ringer, and then come out the other side with a lot of revision. And so we'll go put, you know, 3 or 4 rounds. We revise them and handle errata, currency updates. Of course, some textbooks are, you know, more frequently revised than others. Those dealing with, you know, economic data, political data, things that change a lot in terms of scientific discoveries, those are updated all the time. Nursing will be updated all the time. You know, parts of physics, parts of calculated are updated, but you know, calculus, we don't need an update on that one every day. We do need in calculus are making sure the problems are accurate and aligned and everything like that. So those changes get made. It's not, you know, timeliness and currency doesn't change that much. I'll talk about the rest of this in just a little bit. Beyond the textbooks that we provide, we're offering, you know, other materials, and it varies a little bit by text and discipline, but you always find lecture slides. If solutions and answers are a thing in that course, if they're typically provided, we'll provide them. So accounting, math, physics, chemistry, really heavy on the solutions. Whereas in other courses, it might be just sort of an answer guide or something smaller, you know, just depends on the nature of the course. Most faculty sort of know what to expect and kind of get it in that course, and they sort of understand what we're providing. We also have, I'll share a little bit more about this. OpenStax can't provide everything that faculty use when they teach. So, you know, if somebody uses a really robust homework system, or they use lab kits, or they use, you know, a molecular visualization or an astronomical visualization tool like a Starry Night, OpenStax isn't going to recreate Starry Night. It's the, you know, leading astronomy software in the world. We wish we could do it, can't. So we partner with those companies, and they provide the resources in and around our materials. And now in those cases, many times they do carry a cost, but the point there is that in many cases, it's a cost that the instructor might have had their students pay anyway, right? So it's, you know, basically the book is still going to be free, but the course aligned resource, homework system, visualization system, or something, lab system is correlated, and then the student only pays that price. Often those providers are actually providing better prices when accompanying an OpenStax book than when they're, you know, providing it around, you know, a commercial textbook. And then, you know, other opportunities, OpenStax, not, you know, the part of the OpenStax that I do, but OpenStax as a whole, it's a very educational research driven organization. We're actually the hub of a largest ever NSF educational research infrastructure, a place where institutions, universities can do educational research in a platform using secure enclaves, so that, you know, student data is protected, and you can get really high ends, you know, very high numbers of students to participate in studies without putting any of their data at risk. And so that's undertaking. So we have a lot of effort around educational research, if anybody's interested in that. And then, of course, you know, all this is, you know, how do you do it all? Where do I get help? Well, customer service, phone, email, chat. We have a dedicated team based in Texas. Well, one's in New York, but of people that can, you know, answer questions. You know, the humans. We do have an AI little chat bot too there on the side, but it's you know, most tech support goes by person. Just to kind of put the you know, putting the cards on the table in terms of, you know, the pricing and how it all works. So the web view of our books, the main book that most people see, that's free. The PDF that you can download, that's free. We have Word docs of all the textbooks, so to help with customization. You know, Word docs aren't perfect in terms of everything else people need to do technologically. You know, they might not be fully accessible or something like that, but they are available. It's easy to edit a Word document. So if anybody wants to do that, we don't necessarily recommend, you know, editing the entire book in Word, but if there's a section that somebody wanted to change or borrow from or put together with something else, you know, they make it really easy. We provide LMS course cartridges. So this is separate from the assignable platform that I'm going to discuss. So what we've basically done is just packaged up the course content related to that subject. So one for AmGov, one for astronomy, one for accounting, and then, you know, the rest of the alphabet. So they are downloadable into Canvas, and as long as your Canvas admin allows you to upload import content via the Canvas import, then you can upload them and it will just populate. It shouldn't overwrite anything, but those are there. And then the items that are not free. So the technology partners that I mentioned, Starry Night, WebAssign, Expert TA, Carolina Biological, and so on, those cost whatever they cost, but it's choice instructors can make. And then OpenStax Assignable is our platform that integrates with the LMS, and that will carry a fee, $15. And I'll share more about that as we talk about that. I see a little. Yeah, sorry. So just checking out the chat. In case I can demo the live site too, but just while we're here in this PowerPoints, if anybody's hasn't been to our site, it's just openstax.org, and then you click, and I thank you for putting it in the links. You click subjects and you get to whatever subject you want to go to. And this is what the instructor would be brought to. This is what you'll be brought to. Basically a page, a summarizing page, like a catalog page, if you're on another publisher site. And it will give a description. It will provide the links to the relevant formats of the book. And then if you click instructor resources, you would get to the instructor resources. The books, as I said, it varies a little bit in terms of which resources are available. But basically, openstax.org, click subject, and you get to the book that you're going to try to get to, and then, can learn more about it. Once you click the book itself, if you click the view online, you would get to the learner experience. And these are just standardized ebooks. Students can highlight and kind of read from the left to right here. Students can highlight and take notes in the text. That's something they need to sign in for. They don't have to sign in to view the textbook itself, but if they want to highlight and take notes, they do need to sign in to save those notes. At that point, students will be prompted to do a terms of service agreement. It's a pretty lightweight agreement. It's probably pretty standard. Most students, for good or for ill, with these types of things, just click yes, like a lot of us do in these sort of situations. But we're not collecting any data. We're FERPA compliant, GDPR compliant, everything like that. So there's really no worry on that front. But if you need more documentation, we can always provide it. So this is the main view of the web view. But we do have the PDF format. The PDF format is going to have the same content. It's going to look a little more like a traditional textbook. For good or for ill, it's not as accessible in terms of screen reader compatibility as the online book. It's also not as current. So if we do make changes, like if we make a quick change because of an errata or something we know changed, Supreme Court made a decision yesterday that affects something. We can make that change. They're not wiki books, but we can make those changes pretty quickly. The PDF would take a little while to catch up. So while the PDF is a great resource for people to get and download, especially if they're going to be offline, it's not going to be exactly the most current material that's out there. We update it, every few months, to keep things in compliance, but there's a little catch-up process. There's some just baseline accessibility features in the web view. They can resize, they can adjust, the text will reflow. This works really well on it does work in certain apps, but just using a browser on a phone works pretty well. And then the books have what they need. So every book will have graphics if it needs graphics, extensive end of chapter material if it needs those, and so on. It's really just dependent on what the faculty, reviewers, and authors put into the design of the book. So speaking of those books, we have a lot of books. They're across, we have about 70 plus books across a bunch of subjects and areas. Our newest material is in nursing. This was funded by the Texas Higher Education Coordinated Board. We have 8 nursing textbooks. These are newly released, so they're quite up to date now. There's always changes, but for the most part, they're very, 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 very up to date. We will be revising and addressing any changes that happen in terms of standards, pharmaceutical information, laws and guidelines, anything like that. These are, while there are national books, but this was Texas funded, and about half the author team was from Texas. So for any nursing faculty in the mix, or anybody who's working with nursing faculty, things should align pretty well. And then plenty of other books. Lifespan Development, Behavioral Neuroscience are 2 other new ones for us. Data Science, Information Systems are coming out. Data Science is out. I don't know, there's a star there. Information Systems is supposed to come out tomorrow. It's not listed here, but we're going to have a prelim version of an additive manufacturing book And then we'll have a few more books coming out, but this is sort of the library as of now. And Yeah, so I mentioned the technology partners. I won't go into it again, but basically, the way that people see this is you can go to that link, openstax.org/partners, and see the list. And then also on the instructor page of every textbook, any relevant partners are listed. So if you're in accounting, you'll see accounting partners. If you're in nursing, you'll see nursing partners, and so on. There are some partners that are basically ubiquitous. They serve every book. Perusal is one, for example. And you don't have to use an OpenStax partner. It's completely open. And the other thing is you don't need to work with us. So anybody who's doing course design or some sort of curation of resources or something, the relationship could be between you and the partner. OpenStax doesn't have to be involved. With that said, if we can help at all, of course we will. It's just a way for us all to work together and get teachers and students with a need. So let me pause a sec if it's okay before I get into assignable. I've been sort of going. I'm not sure if this is helpful or if this is material sort of I'm treading ground you already know. Any questions or comments or anything I should dig into so far? Anything else I missed? I remember I have one thing I should say. Okay, that was probably a requisitely long enough pause. So let me say also, but just about the licensing, because I know we have a lot of folks who might be interested in that, and if you don't know, so the OpenStax the textbooks are licensed either as CC BY Creative Commons Attribution or CC BY NC, not non-commercial. And the differences there just vary based on some of the source material for the book and some contingencies on how we were able to achieve that. Most of our books are actually developed from scratch, but in a couple of cases, we actually acquired an existing textbook. The number, like a really obvious one that's used at A&M is our organic chemistry textbook. It was the leading textbook by Cengage by John McMurray that almost every college in the country used. And we were able to acquire it, but the price of doing that was to license it as NC so that its previous publisher could sort of quote unquote be a little bit protected in a way. But it's completely open for any faculty. The NC license really isn't impactful at all for use on a college campus or by students. It's only to kind of limit the way it's used elsewhere in terms of reapplied by third parties. And just anything that's NC can work in any of our textbook work in inclusive access, equitable access, automatic textbook billing programs. If A&M has that, and your faculty or students are going to use it, we understand that, especially in the OER community, those programs aren't always viewed, quite positively, but our material can be used in them. Whatever position you take on them or how the campus works with them is obviously up to the discretion of you all and the campus itself, but we just don't want to limit our access or anything like that. So all of our textbooks can be used in those programs regardless of license. And then so I'll talk about Assignable and then get into some other stuff about formats. So Assignable is a teaching and learning platform that we developed to enhance the OpenStax experience. And the thing about this is that you won't find this. You can go to our site, openstax.org/assignable, and find a little bit about Assignable. You won't actually find Assignable there because it is solely meant to work within the LMS. What we heard, we had another platform before, but every request that we got from almost every faculty member in campus and librarian and instructional designer and everybody else was, I need this in my LMS. So we basically decided, why don't we just start there and just optimize it for LMS consideration. So it's an LTI tool that integrates to the LMS. It's not available at, I'm going to demo it in a second. It's not available at A&M yet. There's an evaluation period, totally get it, that it should, and we will glad to help with that at all in any way. If anybody does want to kind of test it out, you can't test it out with students yet without it being integrated at A&M. But you can test it out as an instructor. I can just give you access to our sandbox and you could play around with it. But what it is it a place, it's not doing too much. It's geared to do the main things that instructors have told us they want to do, mostly build assignments in the LMS, assigning OpenStax readings, assigning OpenStax assessments and other assessments, assigning enrichment materials, curated materials, such as additional readings, articles, videos, interactives, and items like that. So it's just one place to get all this material. Currently, it's available in technically 10 books, if you count econ as 3, but these subjects, A&P, bio, psych, history, sociology, AmGov, and the economics trio. And when we're adding more all the time, we'll have world history and college success out pretty soon. We'll keep going. Every month or two, we'll release a couple more courses. So let me just see. Right. So it basically, I kind of said this already. It's accessible, directly through the campus LMS. You're using Canvas, but others are available too for other schools. And then it's an LMS tool. It's configurable and customizable. So you can make a course, you can copy a course coordinator, an instructional designer can make a course and have that be distributed. There's some settings within LMSs around these tools that vary by LMS and even by install. But typically, everything works. And we, of course, I mentioned we have customer service, we have engineers and stuff that can help with anything that's needed. Most faculty are using it on their own. They're basically, or they're using it in a course where they have collaborative teachers or adjuncts or something, and they're developing it that way. So just want to make sure I don't have this. Yeah, okay. So I'll show it quickly this way before I demo it. So basically, what you see here, if you just look at this graphic on the right-hand side, so basically I'm in one of the biology textbooks, and I'm just getting, the left navigation. This is just a table of contents. And then every time I go into a chapter, I get this menu. And Assignable presents a menu of these resources associated with the chapter. An instructor can pick videos, readings, assessments, just like I mentioned, all mostly through these checkboxes, right? And I want this, I don't want that. I can preview it, I can see a description and so on. And then I can move on and assign it. And then the instructor gets to set some settings, points, policies and so on. And then it will just appear. The students get a view, very similar view to what I just presented, but it's actually the output, right? It's all the resources that the instructor just selected in these graphics. I apologize, what are very long assignments, but basically the student can go in, do this work. They take quizzes, they do readings, they mark things complete. All of that reports to the gradebook, and then the instructor gets that view. Students get that view, and so on. And the last thing about Assignable before I show it, it's a lightweight tool. It doesn't override anything else that's being done. Most of these tools don't. You can usually use even more than one at the same time. But it's really doing only what I said: assignment creation, enrichment, and so on. It doesn't do it doesn't do discussion forum. It's not doing ePortfolio. It's not overtaking or overriding anything else in the LMS. It's just serving for this purpose. And then you can make assignments. You can have an assignable assignment, and then you can have another type of assignment right in the same assignment manager, and there's no interference. So let me go ahead and show you. Escape out of this. I might lose the share, so I might have to stop and reshare. But just give me a second. It's okay. I'm just going to stop and reshare just so I'm sure. Okay. Can you see that? Okay, thanks so much. Okay, so I'm in Canvas right now. Where am I? I'm gonna go and I'm in the. Let me start from scratch. I'm gonna go into the assignment manager. So this is just a list of assignments. This is the instructor view, not the student view of the Canvas assignment manager. And I'm gonna go ahead and create an assignment, and I'm gonna call it, and I'm gonna go down and this is all just the Canvas. This isn't assignable yet. This is all the stuff that you're seeing in the field is all Canvas. And then I'm going to go and add the tool. Again, right now, not yet integrated, but once it is, this is what instructors would do. And I can go and I can see, the books that are available. I mentioned that those 10 books that are available. Technically, if an instructor just wants to go and just do readings, they actually could do that with all the OpenStax books. But most instructors are gonna focus. I think the richest resources are the ones that we built out these offerings for. So let me just go into, let's go to biology. I'm going to start out getting some initial global resources for the whole book. and some notes about highlighting and note taking. There's a time management guide and reading and note taking guide. Those are just options. They're not bio specific in this case. They're not site specific or US history specific. They're just generic. Most what faculty are going to do is want to go into the chapter itself. It's going to churn for a minute. I'm going to get this menu as I showed before, and I'm going to get to add readings. I could control which sections I want, what kind of assessments I want. There's these reinforcement questions. These are aligned with the chapters, but from outside the book, I can add cumulative practice. That's another set of basically more advanced questions that can be used as an end of chapter sort of approach. And then I can add these other resources. So we've built, written, curated, or acquired a series of other resources that go with this chapter. So with the videos, these are just YouTube videos, but they've been vetted for alignment with the chapter, and they've also been vetted for accessibility, so that they're WCAG compliant, and they have captions, and they don't have their colors work and everything like that. You can go and, of course, an instructor can see what they're aligned with, and we've put the length of the video and this little brief description. But the instructor can go and see the video if they want before we recommend that. Going and seeing it before they go ahead and do it. And they're all different types of videos. We have some that are a little like the Amoeba Sisters and Professor Dave, who are a little informal, and we have some that are quite serious. And so it's just a matter of what the vibe is for that class, or what the instructor wants to get across. So we have this list of videos. There's a lot of videos here, but something we heard is that instructors want to teach with video. But even just the idea of curating 3 videos for a class, and if you have to watch 13 or 15 to find 3, that's a lot of time if each one is 5 minutes, and a lot of faculty don't have that time. So we've done that selection for them. Again, they should go in and check them out, but we've tried to narrow it down. Interactives, other types of resources that are incorporated. So I'm just clicking these various things. Portrait of a researcher. She's one of the leading experts on HPV. We actually have an A&M professor as one of our portraits of a researcher, Julia Rangel, who does work with bees. It's a great, amazing researcher. So actually we have an A&M professor featured as one of these portraits. And we're mostly focused on people that are underrepresented in science or in the discipline as much as we can. So this checkbox thing, you do that, and then I'm going to review the assignment. I'm going to get some settings. I can set the attempts. When I show feedback, I can set relative points. The overall points for the assignment would be set by the instructor in the overall assignment screen or in the gradebook. There's some settings for that, but this is just to show like, okay, I don't really, care less about this than I do about that, basically, and you can set things to 0 if you just want students to have the option of looking at them, and so on. So I go to create, it's going to give me a little churn, and then so then I'm back in Canvas. I'm going to save and publish, and then I can view it as a student. So I did all that selection. I can go update that if I want, and here's what I just built, right? So I could reorder these in the system if I want to. The students that go through the videos, most of the videos are just watch and mark complete. We also do have the ability to have assessments after the videos. They're not integrated into the video like interrupts, but we have an ability to have video specific assessments. We don't have that for all the videos because so many of them are going to be background material or just an alternative view on the material. But if there are any that are more like pertinent to the topic, or we really feel that most instructors are probably going to use, we might put like an assessment after them, and then the student can complete that assessment to show they watched the video. Of course, all at the instructor's discretion. So anyway, the student goes through. They can go in any order. They can stop and come back. It saves their progress if they need to stop, or if there's any interrupts. Website goes down, or internet goes down, or something like that. Anyway, so they go through these different assets. Quizzing, like I said, so the quizzing is going to provide a question. They're going to get multiple attempts. They're going to get, I got that one right, of course. You never mean to get it right when you're doing a demo. They can go through. Maybe I got this one wrong. That's the question. life. This is probably wrong. Yes. Okay. So I get to try another one. So I get, feedback, and then I got the one right. So I get some correct answers, but there's answers for incorrect. There's a detailed solution, and so on. So this is really it in terms of what the baseline assignable offering is. So when we have this for one of the books, the instructors that are in Canvas can go and add it, and then start building assignments based on it. And again, only for those, for those sections or classes that they want to. So I'll stop there on the assignable side. Yeah, I probably have a summary. Yeah, again, this is just a summary of what I was sharing, so I'm not back in slideshow mode, but pre-created quizzes and practice, curated videos and interactives, culturally responsive and career relevant enrichment materials. That's what's in it. And then it tracks student performance. The instructors can combine and remix. Actually, yeah, so even if you're teaching bio, but you want to use a section from the writing guide, or college success, if you want to show the piece on studying or critical thinking, or instructors might have to mix and match different courses if they're teaching different nursing courses, for example, or different business courses. There might be a lot of opportunity to mix and match. So all that can be done in assignable. There's no restriction on how much of OpenStax you use in it. So instructors can go and pick and choose from everything. Of course, you can do that with all of OpenStax because our material is open, but we just felt to keep that going with the class that we, with the system we're making. And so as Jen mentioned, so we have upcoming features and expansion with an assignable, additional question types, more on instructor insights, more customization. Right now, if you wanted us to include specific assessments, we could add them, but we have to do it ourselves. It's really not hard to do, but we would do it. Whereas, we want to make sure that if somebody has a pool of questions they want to upload, they can go ahead and do that. Of course, you can do that in the LMS itself. But beyond those, OpenStax is really focused on different other types of technologies that we're focused on. And of course, AI is top of mind for a lot of folks. But before I sort of get into that, let me just make this a little bigger here. Take me in slideshow mode. Oh no! Oh, you know what? Let me just go to slideshow. I'm gonna stop and reshare. Actually, I should stop. Any questions on assignable before I go forward?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. You mentioned that there is a fee associated with a tool.
There is. So assignable right at this moment it's 15. It's free, but it will be $15 per student per semester in the fall. And that can be paid in a variety of ways directly. It could be paid through IA and in a bookstore program. It could be paid through an institutional fee or something like that, but there would be a charge with it. The OpenStax books themselves will always be free, but the assignable itself will have a charge.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and believe me, we don't take it lightly. We're mostly known as an open public. I mean, we are known as an open publisher, I hope, and all of our materials are free. The point of charging is to make sure that we're able to keep it up and keep it live and keep it growing all the time and have that customer support. Where $15, as I think was mentioned, it's a lot lower than a lot of the other prices for similar platforms. Again, it doesn't do everything. Like, if you need complex molecular drawing or something like that, it's not going to be an assignable just yet. But we'll, hopefully we'll get there. But anyway, it is a resource that you can use, and that price, especially, in certain formats, and well, we could also work on, some other, some discounting and so on, especially, just in terms of options for use. But the other thing is, beyond assignable, but also in assignable, I just want to share that, I think one part of the innovation that we're trying to drive is, stuff that you do with us and on our platform and so on. But of course, that's only one thing, that's only one place. right? OpenStax is part of a mix. We see ourselves as a part of a much larger OER community and educational technology community, right? Some of those are commercial, and some of those are, sorry, my radio just turned on. But some of those are commercial entities, some of them are nonprofits, some of them are fellow universities, and so on. So we just see ourselves as part of this larger ecosystem. And so, taking our materials and using them elsewhere, great. Many of our materials are in Pressbooks, right? We make our materials ready for Pressbooks, but it's not our platform or anything like that. But if you need anything to help get into Pressbooks, all the art, well, you can get that art, whether it's the art that we worked on with A&M on the bio, or it's chemistry art or anthropology art or something that, nobody at the school has ever seen before. You can get that. We can give that to you, XML, HTML, other assets, and so on. If anybody needs that, not most of these are just available on our site, but not every single one. It's quality control and sort of access control on things like XML, HTML. It's actually a little better if we kind of work with folks that need it. There's no charge or anything. But if anybody needs anything that, doing any innovation, doing any customization, doing any programs, for course design, course development, or sort of course redesign, that's where a lot of these types of resources come into play. And then other types of offerings, it's a massive university that you're all at. So, there's tons of community programs, continuing ed, micro-credentials, all sorts of opportunities for that. If our material can be helpful in that, it absolutely can be. And hopefully our site and the offerings we have sort of off the shelf are helpful there. But I know personally that they won't all be, right? That you're going to need some change, most likely, to fit all these different use cases. So that's where the offerings, hopefully can help. And people are building interactives, and there's like hundreds of YouTube channels based on our books. There's GeoGebra and H5P interactives and stuff in Open Author and WebWorks and stuff that all these other entities have done without us at all, which is outstanding. And then, programs like the one I'm talking about, A&M Biology Department, UConn did something similar in chemistry, where they developed a specific chemistry textbook based on ours, and they funded it. Student government funded it, actually, which is kind of cool. And then beyond all of this, AI is a big thing. Our founder is a professor of artificial intelligence and machine learning, for decades at Rice. And we've been doing things in natural language processing for a while. Adaptive learning, better student support, adaptive response, and so on. While we are not using AI to build our textbooks or anything like that, we are working on some experiments, and also digging deep into some funded projects, either by the government or by philanthropy around AI. And they include specifically economics. Right now, one of our stalwart funders in economics is the Kazanchian Foundation. They've always funded some innovative projects, and right now we're working on a series of sort of real world tutorials. They're AI driven. They consist of baseline knowledge interaction, and then sort of a real world problem, and with all video, AI generated video in the background. And then as the students working through the real world problem, they're getting, sort of a tutoring experience along the way. And so those exist as, for example, just like these modules that are self-contained, and they can pass a grade to an LMS or to something like assignable, but they don't need to. Like, an instructor can also just assign them for, hey, try this, let's do it, and then we'll talk about it. Do it as a group for 10 minutes, and then we'll do it in class, whatever. I mean, we're not prescriptive, and frankly, we can't be. The instructors have to be, right? Let's get it in front of 20, 30 instructors, whatever, 4,000 or 5,000 students, and see what they do with it. That's really our theme for all of that, all of this type of thing. So that's one. And if anybody from Texas A&M or other entities want to be involved in that, take a look. We'd love to have that opportunity. Other things we're doing are really focused on teacher tools for the development of better teaching practices. We're really focused right now also on, I don't know how much it affects your school specifically in all of your courses, but across Texas and across the country, far more adjuncts are teaching than previously, and that's great. It's bringing a rich and diverse audience into teaching, but the adjuncts are often extremely overworked, have very little time. Although many institutions have tons of support for them, it's often very hard to do. So it's very hard work all around. And student challenges, the differences among students, student heterogeneity. It's really hard, especially for adjunct populations who don't may not see that all the time. So we think AI might be a really interesting way to help those teachers to identify trends, to help remediate. One of the largest questions we get is, or concerns we get is, hey, I'm teaching finance, except I'm teaching math. And then, getting that background, or, there's a co-rec program around, intra-algebra, but, hey, it doesn't fly over to accounting or to the business or econ that requires that mathematic. And same thing in reading and writing and so on, those sort of foundational skills, durable skills. How can AI help with that? And how can AI help students see pathways, especially as they're deciding on majors, deciding to persist, having trouble in one major and needing to pick another, and that sort of thing. So we're really working on some projects with AI to help with that. I know that me saying this, you're probably like the 90th person you've heard say, oh, we're experimenting with AI, we got to try it. Of course, I've heard the same thing, right? But that's just what we're doing. We're sort of centering it on the subjects we teach in, we deliver. So, social sciences, and so on, and having that broad base of adopters and students is helpful. But, we would never put something forth unless it's approved. There's also that aspect of having the institutions share. So even an assignable, if we had an AI tool incorporating that in any way, that would sort of be a separate approval level, right? I think in many cases, instructor enabling it, or the institution itself deciding, yes, this is okay, depending on whatever the policies are. So that's the areas where we're working, but also full of options for ideas. Like all this stuff where people take our stuff and put it in other places. Another place they're putting it is into AI rags, and hey, we made an easier version of your stats book, or we translated your history book, or we did a point counterpoint version of your political science book, all sorts of things like that. And if anybody's hearing about that or wants to experiment with anything like that, or you hear faculty who are, very, very glad to dig in on that and see how we can help. Okay, so I think that's all I have from a presentation standpoint. I hope this is helpful, but again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to share. But the other thing I should have shared this. I know that not everybody is a faculty member teaching a course here, but just so you're clear, in your roles on campus, you can absolutely have access to our instructor resources. We essentially treat you all as instructors, right? So so if you don't have access and you want access, don't let if there's anything that looks imposing or prohibitive in the sign up or anything like that, just blow right through that. We'll approve you, no problem. And if you have any trouble, you can just reach out to me, but you shouldn't. So anybody who needs anything like that, we understand there's far more people than only faculty and instructors that are involved with the education process. Okay, so I'll stop talking, probably thankfully for everybody, but unless you have questions or comments or anything I can dig in further on, or anything I missed.
I had a question sent to me in the chat. It was sent directly to me, and they were asking if they see that Additive Manufacturing Essentials is an upcoming title,
Yep.
and we're wondering if there is a basic manufacturing or machining technology book in the works.
Unfortunately not. No, we don't have that. I think probably the place where you'd find that, and I don't know for sure, might be on Skills Commons, which is a part of Merlot. If you're not familiar with it, if somebody just Googled it, you might find that. I don't know for sure. I know there's some other places that are doing some manufacturing stuff. I don't know of any in Texas, but I feel like in North Carolina, in the Piedmont Community College area, there was some stuff. A lot of I know Texas does it too, but there's a lot of mechatronics out there and car manufacturing. So they had some stuff, Northern Virginia. I can look for that, but no, the additive manufacturing, we got a specific grant to develop that by well, from HP, pretty prominent additive manufacturing company. So it was originally going to be like a theme, like have a series of textbooks in that sort of fourth industrial revolution arena. Where maybe that will come true, but additive manufacturing was the first one. It's the only one we have. We don't have a lot of textbooks like that, like in that career and
It's
technical
going to be
education.
published in tomorrow, right?
So yeah, this is a little unusual. I'll just be completely frank. This is a little unusual for us. The book isn't quite as polished as we normally publish a textbook. We really like to get them very, very final because first impressions mean a lot. But like we're getting to the part of the semester where like if we don't have it out in some format by, you know, this month, then like no faculty will really use it. So especially since it's brand new, we don't have a lot of other books. And if we came up with another math book, I think a lot of people would sort of give us the benefit of the doubt a little bit to some extent. But I think when you're branching into an entirely new discipline, you got to get out early. So anyway, so we're going to do a version of tomorrow. The full book is there. It just needs a little more polish. There's some bullets out of the tables and stuff like that. And then we'll republish it. Probably early April, we'll have the final version done. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
And I would like to just mention here that we have a full open digital publishing platform, and we support not just press books, but we also support books that are being developed in Manifold and books that will be developed on the LibreText platform as well, if anybody's familiar with any of those. We would be happy to help you locate any books or for your courses, any type of course materials that you might need. We can help you find those through the OpenEd department. You can just email us at openedhelp@tamu.edu. And if you wanted to adapt an OpenStax books, we can put it into our Pressbooks course shell, and because we can get those Word files and load those into our Pressbooks, and can help adapt any textbooks if there's material that you want to change. Are there any other questions? All righty. I don't think there are. Well, I want to thank Anthony for taking the time today to come and talk to us about OpenStax, and thank you all for attending, and encourage you to go look at our OpenEd page for OpenEd Week, because we have a lot more events coming up, and we would love to see you at all of those events. Thank you all, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks so much for having me. So appreciate it. Have a great day. Thanks.